Oh, never mind.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Unscripted here on the Elite Sports and Entertainment Network, doing our NFL Week 18 game preview, final games for the regular season here in 2023-24 for the NFL. Once again, we are live on the Elite Sports and Entertainment Network, our hub, where you can check us out on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, LinkedIn, anywhere you enjoy social media. You can find us over there. Link tree is in the bio where you can find all of those. And of course, with this, we are on the Northeast Streaming Sports' channels over there. Check them out: Facebook, Roku, YouTube, you name it, you can find them over there. We appreciate them for allowing us to broadcast on their channel. Helping us out, as always, Stat Guy, Dustin Reese. Dustin, what's going on, man? How are you today?
Doing well. It's been a fun last couple of days of football, and I think when you look at the matchups that we're going to preview for Sunday, it's going to be a fun Sunday with a lot of playoff implications on the line.
Oh, dude, you're not kidding. It's going to be a fun one. A lot of good games, a lot of implications. And helping us out, as always, Jay McLovin. Jay, what's going on? How is Blue, by the way? I heard him barking in the background.
Yeah, we had the maintenance guy come over, so Blue went into protection mode. Not that he's really going to do anything because Blue's kind of a softie. But it is what it is. Hey, Cowboys, we're still in it. Not completely out. We'll see if they are the same old Cowboys or not. That's how I'm doing.
I got you, brother. Okay. Well, guys, let's just go ahead and jump right into it. Of course, 5 slated games here. We're going to kick things off with a rivalry, as always, in the AFC North. The Steelers and the Rams. Stat Guy, give us your thoughts on this one. Who's going to take home the win? We already know the Ravens clinched their playoff spot, looking good. Really, they're just trying to fight the Browns now at this point. Steelers, they're still in it, but they need a lot to happen.
Well, I mean, once again, that makes it 17 seasons and 17 winning seasons for Mike Tomlin, as he has yet to have a losing season. And that's an impressive feat when you think about kind of the quarterback carousel that the Steelers have had to deal with since Ben Roethlisberger has retired. And that just goes to show you the type of coach that Mike Tomlin is. I mean, Kenny Pickett hasn't been impressive at all. He's got, 17 touchdown passes in 2 years as a starter. So, I mean, he's still under the microscope in terms of if he's their future. Mitch Trubisky, their backup. Again, he hasn't done really much of anything. You had Josh Dobbs there last year as a backup, and you have Mason Rudolph, who's started last week and has been kind of that backup there for the last 4 or 5 years. And yet all they do is find ways to finish with 9 wins every single season to avoid a losing season. So credit Mike Tomlin to that. And in this one, you have the Ravens, who just, I think, dominated the Miami Dolphins a lot more than what anyone expected last weekend. I think they kind of fully cemented their status as the best team in the NFL with that performance against the Dolphins. And not only did they they did lock up their division. They locked up the division and they locked up home field. But now the question that the Ravens have to decide is, do they play Lamar Jackson or anybody this weekend, knowing that this game doesn't matter to them? And I'm going to say they do, because if you remember 2 years ago when the Ravens last had the number 1 seed, they chose to sit Lamar Jackson in week 17. Then they had that bye week, obviously, for having the number 1 seed. And then they go and lose 20-13 to the Titans in the divisional round, and everybody on that team looked rusty. And John Harbaugh has said if he could do things over, he would, and he would not have sat his starters the entire game. He would have at least played them a half just to kind of keep them fresh. And I see that the case this time. Knowing the team that the Ravens have had and knowing how good they've been this season, he wants to try to give his players as much rhythm and as many reps as possible so that bye week isn't as lengthy. I do see the starters playing the first half, and even if Pittsburgh has something to play for, the Ravens and the Steelers hate each other. The Ravens aren't going to take it easy on the Steelers to help them out. So I like the Ravens in this one. I think they put up 20 to 24 points in the first half and then kind of let up on the gas, but I think it's going to be like a 24-13 game just to keep the starters fresh.
All right. Jay McLovin, who's taking home this one? Is Pittsburgh going to keep their chances alive, or will Baltimore send them home packing?
Yeah, clearly the Steelers are playing for their playoff lives. We all know that. I think if Kenny Pickett was playing in this game, I would say hands down Ravens are going to trash them, beat them up, throw them out the window. But it's not Kenny Pickett. When Kenny Pickett's healthy, they're running with the hot hand of Mason Rudolph, who's going to get the start. And as you saw, Pickens underneath the helm of Pickett was terrible. He never got the ball, hardly ever. So now that Mason Rudolph comes in, those guys have got some kind of formidable bond that's just absolutely outstanding. And I will tell you, Jackson is the MVP favorite. There's no doubt about it. I think the next closest probably is McCaffrey out there with the 49ers as well. But the Steelers, they've beaten Cincinnati. They've beaten Seattle in this 2-game win streak. And Rudolph is looking pretty good. In 2 games, he's got 567, 2 touchdowns, and guess what? 0 interceptions. Not bad. And I've always said this too. When Jackson is not only your leading rusher, but also your quarterback, for me, that's always been an issue. But you can't negate what they've done. I think Gus Edwards has now become the number 2 option, and Jackson is almost the damn near number 1 option. At that point, you look at Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers is playing off the chain. You look at Pickens. He's got 1,140 yards, 5 touchdowns. But the majority of what he's doing now and what the Steelers are doing now is Mason Rudolph to him as a connection. And let's not forget what Warren and Najee Harris, the running back duo out of Pittsburgh, and what they're doing at the same time. I think the Steelers had the better run game. I think they had the better receivers. But I think the Ravens have the better quarterback and better defense. I think this comes down to defense. Can T.J. Watt put pressure onto Jackson and keep him in the pocket and not let him get out of the pocket? And can Pickens and Rudolph continue to do what they're doing and do it effectively? I think the Steelers got to contain and put pressure on Jackson. I think Rudolph to Pickens and Rudolph to Robinson has to be huge. And Gus Edwards for the Ravens has to step up and become the number 1 option and not have so much be Jackson as the number 1 option. I do think the Steelers have a fighting chance to get that win, but this is not the kind of matchup, if you're a Steelers fan, you want to have your team depend on in order to get in the playoffs. I do still think the Ravens take it, but I am not ruling out that Steelers. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it'll be 21-17 in favor of the Ravens.
Yeah, I think people are also maybe sleeping on this game a little bit just because they think, the Ravens already done their thing, looking solid. But I'm telling you, man, something about the Steelers this year is different than in years past where we've seen, as that guy mentioned, since Ben Roethlisberger, they've really tried to hammer down who's their quarterback. You thought it was going to be Kenny Pickett. But he has not lived up to that first-round hype. Not as of yet. He's still early in his career. But so far, it looks like you could have got him in a later round. But lo and behold, here comes Mason Rudolph after years of just kind of hanging out and getting snacks with the guys. He's played a little bit, but, he's came in, and like you said, he knows the system, guys. That's the big thing. He knows that system. He knows what his receivers want, and he gets it to them. You mentioned, Jay, that connection that he has with George Pickens, who has been, quietly, and if not just arguably, one of the better receivers taken in the draft. I think that the Steelers are building a good core, with Pickens, with Harris, who's really kind of stepped it up here lately. And if they can get their quarterback situation figured out, or if Pickett can break out, then I think the Steelers could have a good foundation for a few more years. They could have a good run. But for now, we know the Ravens on top of the division. They've got all the momentum. Lamar Jackson seems to be, in that MVP 1 or 2 conversation, just with how well he's played this year. And they've got a super talented receiving core, which, honestly, coming into this year, I didn't know how it would look because, Zay Flowers is a good player. Didn't know how he would play this year, though. OBJ, he's had a solid year overall. He's gotten it done. Obviously, he's not his numbers 10 years ago, but he's still solid, a good option. But for me, I'll go a little bit of an upset in this one, I guess you could say. I'll go with the Steelers because I think, obviously, they're fighting for everything. So I think they're going to show it. Tight win, though. Give me the Steelers 20 and give me the Baltimore Ravens 17. 3-point ball game.
Yeah, I can see that.
Another good rivalry, fellas. We got the Green Bay Packers, led, of course, by Jordan Love, out there representing the NFC North and taking on the Chicago Bears, who are coming in at 7-9, which I think is a lot better than a lot of us thought they'd be at, 4 or 5 weeks in when they were just looking horrific. So, Jay, I'll let you go first. Who do you have winning this one out there in the North in a battle of just 2 guys? I think the Packers. Yeah, the Packers still have a chance. They're not eliminated from the playoffs or anything.
Well, as of today, the Packers are in.
Oh, they're in. Okay.
And if they control their own destiny because they have the
Right.
tiebreaker over Seattle. So as of right now, the
A
Packers
win.
have the 7th seed.
So pretty much winning, you're in. That's pretty much how it's looking. So Jay, do they take care of business? Do the Packers sneak into the playoffs, or will the Bears play spoiler?
Yeah, clearly, as you have pointed out, the Bears are out at 7-9. The Packers at 8-8 are still in on a technicality. I think can the Bears play spoiler and take the Packers out of it? Because if the Bears beat the Packers, then the Packers are no longer in it. So this really comes down to what are the Bears playing for? The Bears are playing for can they take one of their division rivals out of it? And I think there's a lot of pride. There should be a lot of pride still left in that Chicago locker room that doesn't want to see the Packers get into the championship or get into the playoffs nonetheless. Fields is doing pretty good, 16-9. He's got 630 yards also on the ground and 4 touchdowns. And again, this is one of those guys, I tell you, I hate when your quarterback is your running back. It's just horrible. Now, I will say this. Herbert last week did have over 130-something yards rushing. They're going to need that. If Fields is, again, the leading rusher of that game, then that's going to be a problem, and I think the Packers win. They've got to have Herbert or somebody in that backfield step up and take the reins. Now, DJ Moore has clearly done well at 1,300 yards and 8 touchdowns, so he is getting him the ball. I think Mooney may be questionable. I'm not sure if he's going to be playing in the game. Love, again, I've never been a big Jordan Love fan. I've always kind of rode on him a little bit, but I got to admit, man, look, Jordan Love is surprised to me. He's got almost 3,900 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions, so he's not doing bad. Quite honestly, in his first real, quote-unquote, rookie season, right? Mm-hmm. Dillon is not doing too bad at 6'13". Obviously, no Aaron Jones. Reed is doing well at 6'81", but I think the X factor on that receiving core isn't necessarily Reed as it is Dobbs. I think Dobbs is still the guy over there for Packerland and what he can do. The Bears have won games when teams have had, no quarterback? Atlanta, for example. So if you have a no quarterback team, I think the Bears come away with the win. Teams that have quarterbacks, not so much. I think the game is obviously in Green Bay, so they got to go to the frozen tundra. I think Green Bay does have the better wide receiving core. I think Green Bay is coming off wins versus Minnesota and also Carolina. Not that Carolina's all that good. And really, let's be honest, Minnesota's not really all that good either. Mullins, Dobbs, whoever else you want to put in there. Well, the Vikings just suck, period. So I'm not really looking at that too much as a big-time game for Green Bay, although it is a division foe. But I do think the Packers can still stay in it. I think they improved to 9-8. I think the Bears are going to lose this game and go to 7-10. I think it's going to be not so much of a blowout, but I think it'll be 28-14 favor of the Packers.
Okay, and Dustin, what do you think about this one? The Bears are pretty much going to get the number 1 overall pick, it seems, because that trade with Carolina.
They have the number 1 overall pick.
It's locked in? Okay. Well, boy, what a trade that was then. Good grief. Well, here's
the funny thing about this game. Packers control their own destiny. If they win, they're in.
That's it.
If the Bears win, they finish 8-9. Same record as the Packers. They could have the same record as the Vikings, the same record as the Saints, and the same record as the Seahawks. Nope. But yet, because of all the tiebreakers, the Bears would still miss the playoffs with a win. And that kind of is unfortunate for them because they started the year 2-7.
Yeah, that was rough.
They have a chance to go 6-2 over their final 8 games. And when you look at how well that defense is playing, 4 more interceptions by their defense against the Atlanta Falcons. They now have 21 interceptions in their last 6 games.
Whew.
And 29 interceptions on the season, which is number 1 in the NFL now. So their defense has very quietly turned it around since Matt Eberflus took over the play calling. Their offense has also very quietly turned things around because they're finally letting Justin Fields play to his strengths as opposed to making him something he's not. And because of that, he's finally showed the consistency that the Bears have been waiting for, which is why they're 6-2 or 5-2 in their last 7 games. And then you look at next year. They own the number 1 pick they got from Carolina. If they win, they'll be picking in the 13 to 15 range. If they lose, they'll be picking in the 11 to 12 range. So regardless, they're going to have 2 top 15 picks. I think the Bears are going to win, and I just like the way the Bears are playing right now. Their defense is playing great. Their offense is showing more consistency. And when you look at how many interceptions they've been getting, they're quickly becoming a team that nobody wants to play. I think the Bears win 21-20, but even with the loss, I think the Packers still get into the playoffs because they have the tiebreaker over a bunch of other teams that I think are also going to lose this weekend.
Yeah, for me, I'll stick with it, guys. I think the Bears, like I said, I think all of us were on here clowning them through the first 9-10 weeks, just because they'd spent all this money in the offseason, hadn't really got it going. Some coaches had gotten fired. It was just bad. But really, since then, they've really turned it around. They've looked great. They've been one of the hottest teams in football in recent weeks. And you see that potential starting to break out now. For the Packers, like I said, kind of ho-hum. Not a great season, not an awful season, just right there in the middle, which, I mean, I don't know if you call that a success or not, but, I mean, it's not a failure. I think that for this one, though, I'll go with the hot hand. Give me the Chicago Bears. Taking them win in Week 18. Final score in that one, I'll go 27-17. All right, next game up on the docket, we got the Rams and the 49ers. Both these teams are headed to the playoffs. They could potentially face each other. Who knows? So let's start off with Dustin Reese. Who's going to win this one, buddy, out there? NFC West Showdown.
Well, I got to give congratulations to Sean McVay and his staff because when the season started, I don't think anyone had the Rams making the playoffs this year.
Yeah.
And now here they are kind of in a similar spot to the Chicago Bears where they're one of the hotter teams in football right now and are a team that not a lot of people want to play right now. Matthew Stafford has got back to looking like the Stafford he was a couple of years ago. Kyron Williams has now proven to be one of the better running backs in the NFL, which I don't think anybody saw coming when the season started. Cooper Kupp is finally healthy. He also has Puka Nakua, who's emerged as one of the better rookie wide receivers in the league, so that gives Stafford two big receivers to throw to. You still have Tyler Higbee as your tight end. I mean, they have all the pieces in place. Their defense is the only thing that I've questioned this year because they don't have Jalen Ramsey anymore. They still have Aaron Donald, but they don't have really that lockdown secondary that they used to have. But you look at the last 4 weeks, their defense is a top 5 defense the last 4 weeks. And it's a big reason why they've gone from the 10th or the 11th seed in the NFC up to basically the 6th seed. And then you look at the San Francisco 49ers, they have nothing to play for this weekend. They already have home field.
They're just chilling. Just put the water boy in. You don't need it.
I mean, knowing how Kyle Shanahan does things, I still think he plays his starters for one quarter. But I don't think they play more than a quarter.
Kind of like a preseason game in terms of how they're going to play it.
Like you'll see the starters get maybe 1 or 2 series, and then you're going to see Darnold come in and all the backups after that. Because of that reason, I think the Rams win this game, and I think the Rams win it 24-20 to clinch that number 6 seed.
I had forgot Sam Darnold was even on this 49ers team. Good grief. All right, Jay McLevin. I guess will the Rams win this one, or will the 49ers backups for the most part?
Yeah, this game is a lot like the Steelers and Ravens, and where the Rams are still fighting for their playoff lives as well. And, they're trying to do something. So, and this is a divisional game. Correct me if I'm wrong. 49ers and the Rams, they're in the same division, right?
Yeah.
So it's a divisional game. So there's still got to be a little bit of respect thing in there. So, but I don't know if the Rams want to be trying to battle for that wild card going up against the 49ers.
They're in already, so it doesn't matter to the Rams.
Oh, so the Rams are fully 100% in?
Yeah.
Yes.
They're in no matter what happens.
Okay, I thought they were like on the bubble at the rest.
No,
okay,
not yet.
Either way, this is still I don't care, man. I still think people have some sort of divisional respect for each other, right? And you got to set a tone for each other. I think everything is setting a tone. And if you're a winner, you're a winner. You don't want to ever have to take a loss. Stafford, like you said, is playing incredibly well at 24-11 on the touchdown to interceptions. I mean, he's doing well. He's almost got 4,000 yards. Brock Purdy is just playing exceptionally well, too, at almost 4,300, 31 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions. I mean, this is the same guy, that I think last year, if he doesn't get hurt, maybe the 49ers win a Super Bowl, and this was Mr. Irrelevant. I mean, it's just still, to me, a very storybook type of thing.
Right.
Like you said, Williams, very, very well at 11, 44, and 12. I mean, you can't ask much more from him on that level. McCaffrey is McCaffrey. The guy can get you in the receiving game. He can get you in the Wildcat game. He can get you in the rushing game. I really think this is an MVP, probably even more so than what Lamar Jackson is, just because of the fact that he could play every damn position. And I think he could probably pass the ball if he really wanted him to. Nakoa, I think this is a guy that really, honestly, could battle Stroud for Rookie of the Year. I think they both have strong cases for it. Stroud most likely will get Rookie of the Year. I don't think anybody's going to take him from Stroud. But if anybody could, you got to look what Nakoa has done and where he came from. Nobody even knew who Nakoa was until Matt Stafford made Nakoa, and Nakoa made himself. Ayuk at 13, 17, and 7 touchdowns. I mean, come on. The 49ers got more offensive weapons than Debo, Ayuk. I mean, this is a star-studded all-star. The last time I seen an offensive lineup like this was back in the early 90s when Montana and Steve Young were there. That's the last time I've seen this kind of a lineup, honestly. No, but I do think at the end of the day, God, this is going to be a good game. If the 49ers take the Dustin approach and only go one quarter, it is what it is. But I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to play tough. I think the 49ers are still going to get the win here. And I think it'll be a close game. I think it'll be 28-26.
Okay.
Favor of the 49ers.
Yeah, it really just depends on who's going to play for San Francisco. We don't know yet. Obviously, stuff hasn't been released. Like I said, I think obviously those guys are going to need some reps. The Stars are. I just think as a team, man, I think the 49ers are super, super solid up and down throughout that entire team. Like I said, the Rams have been playing really well lately. No question about that. But I will go with San Francisco. Final score for me, a little bit lower scoring. I'll go final score 17-14. All right, next game we have here, Bills and Dolphins. Jay McLovin. Who's taking home this one out there in the AFC, out there in the East?
Yeah, this really is the game of the day, or the game of the week for me. 10-6 versus 11-5. Who can take over that division and take it into the playoffs? Both teams have a lot, obviously, on the line, so you will see the full accoutrement of players. The problem with it is, though, for me, Logan, is the Dolphins have a lot of damn injuries.
They do.
They just lost their number one defensive guy in Chubb with the ACL tear. They also have Xavier, is it Henry or Howard? Xavier Howard, that cornerback, he's out. So you got some big hits on the defense. You also got some big hits over there on the offensive side. It doesn't look like Mostert will probably play. I think he's going to be done. I think you're going to see, and that's the one good thing for Miami is that they do have a good running back in the number 2 spot, and Ashney, or however you say the guy's name. However, it doesn't look like Waddle. I think Waddle may not be playing. I think he's questionable right now for the Bills, so that's still up in the air. So that means a lot of pressure is going to be put on Tyreek Hill. And, Tyreek Hill was injured not that long ago, but it's still Tyreek freaking Hill, the cheetah. Cook, he's not having a bad year at a little over 1,000 and 2 touchdowns. Diggs, 1,096 and 8 touchdowns. You got Gabe Davis over there, Kincaid over there at the tight end spot. I got to tell you, though, I just feel like Miami was blown out by Baltimore. Should lose this game, like I said, due to injuries to their key players. I don't know if Miami has enough octane on the offensive side, and I don't know if they have enough defense on the defensive side to contain this Bills team. So for those reasons, I do think the Bills are going to overcome and take the division. I think it'll be probably a moderate game. I don't think in scoring. I think it'll be I'm going to go 21-13 favor of the Bills.
Okay, Dustin, who do you have winning this one?
I mean, who would have thought a month ago that we'd be having this conversation where Week 18, if the Bills win this game, they're the number 2 seed in the AFC, and if they lose, they could possibly be out of the playoffs altogether versus win or lose, the Dolphins are in no matter what. Obviously, losing Bradley Chubb is, I think, the biggest X factor in this game because he is one of their better defensive players, and then not having Xavier Howard 100% hurts as well. Yes, Mostert's been injured. Yes, Jalen Waddle's been hurt. But this is a must-win game, in my opinion, for the Dolphins. So Mostert, Waddle, all the injuries that they have on offense, I think they're all going to play. Because having 2 home games in Miami is going to be crucial for the Dolphins to make a deep playoff run. Because we know how tough it is to win in Miami just because They've been one of the best teams at home all season. And if they have to get 3 games on the road as opposed to 2 games at home and possibly 3 games at home, depending on what happens to the Ravens, that's ultimately, I think, the biggest X factor to determine how the Dolphins do in the playoffs. But you look at this Buffalo Bills team, you could make the case that this is the one team in the AFC and the NFC that nobody wants to see right now. Because for whatever reason, when this team fell to 6-6, whatever closed-door meeting Sean McDermott and his staff had when these players had, this Buffalo Bills team looks like the Buffalo Bills team that everyone expected them to look like. This is the one team that I think if they get in as the 2 seed, they're going to make some serious noise in the playoffs, and they continued to do that the last month and a half of the season. This is a battle-tested group with playoff experience. This is a battle-tested group that knows what their potential is when they live up to their potential. And because of that and because of the injuries that the Dolphins have had, Buffalo comes in, steals this division with a 27-10 win on Sunday.
I think for me, like I said, the Dolphins, they're banged up. They've already got their playoff spot clinched. They're already good to go. I don't see any risk of them putting their injured guys out there, have them have a free week to rest and get geared up for the playoffs where it matters the most. For the Bills, they've been really hot. They've been looking really good here as of late. And, kind of like the Bears we talked about. They just kind of had that midseason switch where they've really turned it up. I'll go with the Bills winning this one. Final score, I'll go 28-21. And the last game, Vikings and the Lions. Just want to give a shout out to the Lions. Won the NFC for the first time in God knows how long. Back when it wasn't even called the North, it was called the Central. So just real quick, Dustin, I know you voiced some of your frustrations to us prior, but Vikings, Lions, who's winning this one?
I mean, I'm not one to criticize Kevin O'Connell too much just because he's done a heck of a job since he's taken over this Minnesota Vikings team last year. But how you can start an unproven Jaron Hall in a must-win game versus Nick Mullins, who, yes, he threw 4 interceptions against the Lions in Week 16. He still had 411 yards passing, and he still had the Vikings within a touchdown of winning that game, only to get intercepted with, 20 seconds left inside the 5-yard line. So Nick Mullins had this team in a position to win. When you look at how this offense has been designed, Nick Mullins is the closest player on your roster to Kirk Cousins that you have. And when your offense was at its best is when Kirk Cousins was obviously leading the way. So, in my opinion, I think Minnesota gave up on the season last Sunday against the Packers when they went with Jaron Hall over Nick Mullins. With that being said, technically Minnesota can still make the playoffs if they win this game. They need a lot of help outside of that. They need the Packers to lose. They need the Seahawks to lose. And I think that's it, actually, those 2 teams, because they have a tiebreaker over the Saints and over the Falcons and everybody else. If Minnesota was completely eliminated, I think they would start Jaron Hall because it doesn't matter. But with them being still alive, I don't think Kevin O'Connell has a choice but to start Nick Mullins. Okay. But I don't think it's going to matter because Detroit can still get the number 2 seed if Dallas loses on Sunday. So Detroit, is going to come out and play everybody.
So what's your final score, Dustin?
I'm going to go 34-17 Detroit.
All right. Jay McClellan, super quick. Who do you have winning this one?
Yeah, there is no field general for the Vikings anymore. Mullins, Hall, Dobbs, it doesn't matter. The Lions are going to end the Vikings' playoff hopes and call it a day. So I will say this, the bright spot, I think, for Minnesota is Chandler, 93, 92, 3 touchdowns. I think this guy should be the starter next year. But, at the end of the day, Lions.
Yeah, I can't believe – look at the Lions, man. That's a story where you look at it and, God, they got beat up for so long. And now, since Dan Campbell took over, they've been thriving. Almost got the playoffs last year. Finally made it this year. Not just got it, they won their freaking division. Proud of them. As for the Vikings, it's a tough one, man. It's tough. The whole quarterback stuff that Dustin mentioned, it's a mess out there. So, for me, give it Detroit, getting the win in this one. Final game of the regular season. I'll have them put up 30. Nice little 30 piece to 30-21. I'll be generous towards Minnesota. Well, guys, it's a pleasure. Dustin Reese, Jay McClellan, been your host, Logan Landers. Guys, we'll talk to y'all again on another live episode. We'll see you soon.